Hey everyone, it's Crystal. Welcome to my new living room. Today's video is all about how to engage other people, how to be a good conversationalist, and how to take those skills and apply them over the telephone. Being able to have a good conversation, to interview well, to establish a connection with someone quickly and genuinely, that is a real superpower. So that is what this video is about. It's about how to engage others and how to make them like you quickly. The key to being engaging is actually being a good listener. The key to being a good conversationalist, it's unintuitive, but it's actually about letting the other person talk. You would think like, oh, this person is just so engaging, so articulate. Yes, you do have to be able to tell a story. You do have to be able to reply and answer questions and at least make someone feel like you're really with them, right? Through your voice and through your energy and your nonverbal gestures. But one thing that I found always works is just holding space for someone else to tell you what they want to say, okay? They could be talking about their day, they could be talking about the weather, talking about what's happening on the news, whatever it is. People, especially now with the coronavirus and everyone staying indoors and starved of human interaction, they just want to be heard. It's universal. Everyone wants to be heard. People also love to tell stories. They love to hear stories. And stories are how human beings make sense of the world. We are evolutionarily and biologically programmed to make sense of our lives and what's happening through the power of story. My technique is I just ask people about themselves. I am just an active listener. So whenever I hold space for someone to tell me what they want to say, people always walk away feeling pretty good. I can't tell you how many times from my days as a title holder that I hear through the grapevine, oh, that Crystal girl, she's really cool. And I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty cool. But the truth is, that person doesn't know much about me at all, because the only thing I could remember from that conversation was asking a couple of well-placed questions, reacting genuinely, and then just letting that person talk. So if that person is telling me about, their day or maybe their outfit, I usually am the one initiating or at least goading them along. Like, hey, tell me about this. Oh, what about this? My job is really just about helping this person feel validated, holding some sort of safe space for that conversation to just happen and for it to just flow. Now, you don't want to be too one-sided asking questions and having it just become an interrogation, because pretty quickly, as soon as that person realizes what's happening, they're out of the moment and you've lost them, because you might even make them feel uncomfortable that you're asking so much. But if you're an active listener and you're really thinking about what that person is saying and then reacting to that, the conversation will just flow so much more easily. A question I get is, how do you engage the introverts or the shyer folks? Now, the introversion really refers more to the way that you recharge, not how they are in social settings. But the way that I generally approach folks who aren't super talkative is to really hone in on something that I can connect with them on. So in person, when you're meeting someone for the first time, something I like to do, if there isn't anything obvious to discuss, is just complimenting them on a decision they've made that is visually obvious. For instance, women and their engagement rings, the color of their hair that they've dyed. Perhaps it's their outfit, an accessory, their shoes. And this is just really validating for someone whenever a stranger compliments or even notices these things. My favorite is doing the engagement ring, the wedding ring, because those are usually decisions that harken back to really happy memories. Yes, she may have gone ring shopping. It reminds her of a really happy time in her life, if she's happily married, that is. Another one would be when you're out traveling and you see people wearing a camera strap and they have a camera on them. You can ask them about what camera they have, what types of pictures they like to take, landscape, portrait, and then also things like profession and even their pets, if they're walking a dog, or their grandchildren. So if they're with their grandchildren, that is. There really are an infinite number of conversation starters. I'd say just test a couple out and see how they go. But the key is to be genuinely interested. People can sniff out a phony a mile away. Just find something that piques your natural interest and then take that to lead the conversation. But my technique really is just asking people about them and being an active listener so that you're actively engaged when you're having the conversation, not thinking about what you're going to say next. That is a common pitfall, is for people to get a little bit anxious and to say, oh, in their minds they're thinking, what am I going to say next? When in reality, you should be dedicating that brain power to really just listening to what is coming out of that person's mouth. When you're able to respond extemporaneously, spontaneously, the conversation just flows. And before you know it, this person might have been talking and talking and talking, and oh, time's up. Okay, if you part ways, that person is left feeling good about that conversation. So that's my little trick, is don't talk too much, engage the other person to do most of the talking. So now, how do you take these communication skills and apply them over the phone? A lot of Gen Zers out there did not grow up speaking on the telephone. It's probably mostly texting and social media DMs. But I'm telling you right now, the world is still very, very oriented around being able to have conversations over the phone. I think about it in two buckets. The first bucket is people you already know, and the second one is people you don't know. Now, the people you do know, you want to send a courtesy text message, an email, give them a heads up before calling them, especially if this is on the younger side. Younger people, I have found, don't like being surprised by phone calls. They don't listen to voicemails. In fact, a lot of them just don't like voicemails. I personally don't mind voicemails because I have a Google Voice transcription service set up. It's free. It basically transcribes a verbal voicemail so that I can read it in text, and it's a lot faster that way. But in general, like, the modern etiquette for talking to people on the phone who you know is, now you just give them a heads up. Hey, when is a good time to call? I just want to get a couple minutes on the phone with you. So make sure to do that. That really helps with making sure that the expectations are set correctly, so that the other person is going to be in a quiet place and isn't doing something else, because being on the phone is a lot more involved than texting. It's a lot harder to multitask when you're on the phone. The other bucket that I mentioned is people you don't know. Now, the people that you don't know, classic use cases: going on Google and calling to find out if a restaurant is open during a holiday, or calling a store in advance to see if the item that you want to buy from them is in stock before you physically show up. One thing that helps me easily talk to people I don't know is, in these cases, I just remember that the person on the other end is used to answering calls literally all day. This is their job, okay? It could maybe hundreds of calls a day. It's kind of like going to the OBGYN and you're getting your women's wellness exam, and you're like, oh, this is very invasive and I feel really awkward. But just remember, every OB that I've talked to, you've seen it once, you've seen them all. They are just used to it, okay? To you, it might feel uncomfortable, but to the other person, it's just another day at the office, okay? So whenever you get a little nervous on the phone, just remember, if this person is someone you don't know, they really do not mind. Another thing that really helps me talk on the phone more confidently is to physically smile. You can hear it in someone's voice when they are smiling. My very first job out of college was a sales job, and I had a mirror on my desk, and I actively smiled because the other person I was talking to could always hear if I was smiling. I don't know what it is, but actively smiling when you're talking on the phone really does make a difference. It makes you sound more engaged and happier, warmer, more welcoming, and just more pleasant. So to sum up what I've talked about in this video, let people talk. Be genuinely interested. Smile when you're on the phone. Text message them in advance to schedule a phone call. Don't be afraid to talk to people you don't know. They are more used to it than you are, and you'll get better with practice. Compliment people, especially on things that you have in common with them, and take a genuine interest in others, because people can really sense that you want to know about them and it's coming from a real place. Well, I hope this video was engaging for you and that you learned something. Please give it a like, subscribe, and take a look at some of my other videos right over here. I feel like I have this one piece of my hair that keeps flying up. Stay down.